Hey folks, I decided to do a series of videos on pipe smoking because it's kind of a dying art. It's a great hobby once you actually get into it and understand it. And what I found for me was it did take some amount of figuring out before it was something I could really appreciate. When I was a kid, my grandfather, he died when I was really young, and he left behind his pipe collection. And I used to love to puff on them with nothing in them. I didn't light them or anything, but I loved the smell of them, and they really made me think of him. And so there is an emotional element there, or a sentimental piece that really draws me to it. But the first time I picked it up, I was probably about 19 or 20. And I got myself a really nice pipe at the time. I got myself whatever bulk tobacco they had there. And I didn't really get into it. I didn't appreciate it. I didn't enjoy it. It was like, I guess it's not for me. And then I realized as time went on, I got back into it because I started smoking cigarettes fairly early. And then over time, I just didn't want to do it. It was disgusting to me. I felt like shit. Pardon my language. I found myself doing something I didn't want to do out of sheer compulsion. And pipe smoking felt like a great alternative because you don't have to hate it while you do it. And I feel that way still. I don't hate doing it, and that's the best thing about it. It's a nice way to pass the time. It's more substantive. You don't inhale it into your lungs, and you get a better quality of product. So I'm going to go over a few of the broad strokes, really. I mean, there's a lot you could get into with this, but I'm just going to give a breakdown of what the types of tobacco are that you can get, because within those there are a million subdivisions of what you could get into. There's different pipes. I tend to use this. This is my favorite pipe, and it's just a briar pipe. It's a Dr. Grabow, which is kind of a classic American brand. I've also made pipes, and this one it has a large bowl. It does really well. I got it used, and you have to season the bowl if you don't get it used. Seasoning, what it looks like is buildup, but that's not what you're going for. You want to clean it. What you do want is carbon in the bowl, and that comes down to just repeatedly using it. It's like seasoning a skillet. The more you use it properly, the more seasoned it gets. So here's some kinds of tobacco, and in general, you don't want to store your tobacco together unless you're okay with the flavors melding. Some of these are a little stronger. Specifically, this one's pretty much my favorite as a once in a while thing, not an everyday thing. This is a crumble cake known as Black Frigate, and it's aged in a rum barrel, and it's got a really peppery, smoky, spicy kind of flavor to it, and it just crumbles into the same as ribbon tobacco, which is the loose tobacco that you would get in a tobacco shop. You can break off pieces and you can sprinkle it very easily. It smells really nice, and it tastes really nice. There's yeast species like Saccharomyces that result from the cellaring process. And you can continue to age tobacco up to about 10 years if it's good tobacco in general. And it will develop more complexity, the flavors meld better and become more incorporated and even, and it loses a lot of the bite. It mellows a lot. This is Erinmore Flake. Now what flake is basically a cut of plug. They make a big chunk. They layer tobacco. Individual leaves go flat like baklava, like flake pastry, or rather phyllo pastry, phyllo. And then you cut into those. This is a plug, small piece of a plug. And so what you would do is you'd make a big brick of this, cut off a piece like that. Try not to get it on the floor because it does add flavor, but not necessarily one you want. And then you end up with flake. It's just a cross section of a plug, and you can slice it, into smaller or thicker pieces, depending on the plug and depending on your preferences. And it's kind of satisfying to do, but it's also kind of annoying. If you don't like to put in that much work, a plug may not be for you. Flake, on the other hand, is pre-cut. And in order to make it the consistency of ribbon tobacco, you take off a piece, you go like this in your hands, just kind of work it. And depending on how hydrated it is, if it's properly hydrated, it's a little more laborious, but you end up with this, which is, same as ribbon tobacco, like you'd get in a bulk jar. I'd avoid the cheap ones altogether. This one is Peterson's 3Ps plug. This is Erinmore Flake, which is an Irish flake, which has a really nice flavor to it. The other I mentioned is Black Frigate. There are a lot of really nice ones out there. And I don't generally do aromatics, but before bed, I do like this CAO Moontrance tobacco. It's just very mellow, it's smooth, it doesn't have any bite to it, and it's a great one for just winding down. It almost has like a dessert-like flavor to it, and I love robust tobaccos in general, but for me, this one is really pleasant in the evening for winding down, and another great reason to get into doing that, having your nighttime blend, is that it helps you sleep better. If you have a pattern of behavior that you do before night, a ritual, then over time, once you start doing that, you associate it with sleep, and you get a better quality of patterning, which for me, as somebody who has pretty severe insomnia in general that I struggle with, this gives me a good way to anchor the idea of sleep with a physiological stimulus that kind of helps me ground it. And so that's those are the broad strokes as far as types of tobacco. And I'll get into, I guess, individual reviews over time. This is a briar pipe. There are all different kinds. You can get briar, you can get burl, you can get whatever plasticky stuff or whatever. Clay is classic. It's a little more breakable, and it's very cheap, though. You can get a German clay pipe for a pretty good deal. There's Meerschaum, which is more of a high-end, usually carved pipe. It comes from a very specific kind of limestone that comes from Turkey. Briar is kind of the gold standard. Corncob is also acceptable, but the best bang for your buck in general is going to be briar. That's where you can get something that's not super overpriced. You can spend $20, $25 for a used one, maybe $50, and still get a good quality pipe, a good sized bowl, a universal stem. This, if I was to end up with this damaged or in need of replacement, I could probably replace it very easily with some generic version of it and just put it right inside. I'll go over the parts of the pipe again at a later time in a different video, and how to maintain your pipe. But for now, I'm just explaining what the kinds of tobacco are, what the kinds of pipes are, and why you may choose one over the other. Meerschaum, honestly, I have no experience with it. I don't have high-end things. Even really good pipe tobacco tends to be very affordable. And so I do buy high-end tobacco, but I don't buy high-end pipes. Maybe one day when I've got the money for it. For now, I'm broke, and I'm just sharing this information for other broke people or people with money who just want to try it out, get into something new, and have this as sort of a meditative ritual or an alternative to cigarettes, because they're making a comeback, and let's face it, they shouldn't be. Cigarettes they're fucking terrible. They taste bad. They're made out of garbage tobacco. Even, American spirits have become kind of the gold standard. When I was a kid, it was Camel or Marlboro or whatever. Now they've got these things that are genetically engineered to have massive amounts of nicotine in them. They're more addictive than any other one. And they're made by R.J. Reynolds. And people think, oh, they're spiritual, though. They're American Spirit. It's R.J. Reynolds, dude. It's always been R.J. Reynolds. This has never been like some guy in the back of a smoke shop on a reservation growing tobacco. And it's a fucking fabricated myth. And the way that they managed to sell it was they just did what they've always done. They put it in TV shows and movies, and cool dudes who live in San Diego and surf are like, yeah, you smoke these ones, they're good for you. It's not true. They're not good for you. They're bad for you. They're more bad for you than Chesterfields, and they taste worse. And this stuff, I don't know anyone who's ever died because they smoked a pipe without smoking cigarettes. I don't know anyone who's ever died from smoking cigars exclusively. There is literally no, and I've done the research, there's no record of this really happening. People who have died who are smokers almost always die because they incorporate cigarettes into their smoking. And I'm not saying that, even though nicotine does have some benefits, I'm not saying it's great for you. I'm not saying get into smoking if you're a non-smoker. But I'm saying the research seems to corroborate that pipe smoking and cigar smoking is a better alternative to cigarette smoking. Not an addition, but an alternative. Don't do like all of it just because I'm saying that those aren't as bad. But if you're going to get into something, this gives you a much nicer alternative, much nicer option of something to get into that's soothing, meditative, fun, interesting, and has years of history behind it and spiritual significance that cigarette smoking simply doesn't. It pretends to, and that's what bothers me the most, is the hypocrisy in it. The little fucking Indian guy on the American Spirits, where they imply that it's a native thing. There was never a native tradition of smoking cigarettes. That came later. You never inhaled tobacco according to the traditional use of tobacco. And consistently, if you look at the historical references, the more traditional option is a pipe. And the way that a pipe is utilized connotes a lot of spiritual things, which we will go over again. I'll get into the history and everything in a later video. But for now, these are the kinds of tobacco that I particularly am into. There are other things. There's twists, and there's different kinds of plugs, and there's, obviously a million kinds of ribbon tobacco that's just pre-sliced. But flake, plug, and crumble cake are kind of the better options for long-term storage and better quality tobacco in general. I would avoid aromatics. I do avoid aromatics as a general rule. If you're into more, if you like the bubblegum and cotton candy vapes, then you're probably going to be more into the creme brulee flavor by Lane, or the cherry flavor, or the vanilla custard flavor. These are all, there's 80 billion kinds of tobacco options. And if you're into if you're the kind of man who likes that, no judgment, I mean explicitly anyway, if you're the kind of man who likes that, then that's available too. But for me, flake, plug, and crumble cake give me just about everything I need, with the occasional high-end, lightly cased aromatic like CAO Moontrance, or Lane 1Q. That's another one that I'm very into as an occasional thing. If I don't want to sit there and do this, or sit there and, cut a plug while I'm standing in the corner of a bar that's crowded with people or whatever, as you saw, cutting a plug is a good way to lose tobacco on the floor, and it's not expensive, but it's not cheap either. But I will continue to make videos, and I'll be more specific. I'll give you information on how to cellar tobacco, meaning how to age it for a longer term to get better results out of it, which ones should be aged, which ones should not be aged, types of tobacco, meaning types of tobacco leaf that are used, processes of tobacco leaf that are applied, and other information that potentially you may find useful. Because, in my opinion, this is a great hobby to be into, like I've said, and it's something that a lot of people haven't even really given that much thought to, and I think they would benefit from really knowing what it's all about and knowing what's available and what is out there. And that's my goal with this series. So this is video 1. Hopefully I didn't bore the hell out of you, because I could see how I would. But that's about the broad strokes for now, and I will be back with more information, hopefully within this week. Take care.